Let's now shift our focus from one conflict zone to another, Ukraine. A big power struggle is currently unfolding over Ukraine, and no, I'm not talking about the conflict between the West and Russia. In fact, not even close. I'm talking about the West's war unity over Ukraine. It's not only weakened, but it's crystal clear today that it is shattered. European leaders are scrambling to secure their involvement in Ukraine's future. In fact, in Paris, the French President Emmanuel Macron has convened a summit in a bid to find a path forward, as US and Russian officials prepare to meet without European participation to discuss Ukraine's situation. But can the Paris meeting make Europe relevant again, is the immediate question. Have a look at the latest developments. On Monday, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Riyadh as part of his first trip to West Asia. This trip, in fact, comes ahead of anticipated talks with Russian officials aimed at ending the nearly 3-year war in Ukraine. It follows a phone call last week between US President Donald Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump has, by the way, instructed top officials to begin talks on ending the war, a promise that, remember, he made during his presidential campaign. Now, these talks are happening without any Ukrainian or European representatives. And this is why European leaders are holding an emergency meeting in Paris. With US and Russian envoys preparing for talks in Saudi Arabia, Europe has in a way been virtually sidelined from the Ukraine peace talks. And European leaders are now trying to figure out how to regain relevance in the discussions about Ukraine's future. Convened by French President Emmanuel Macron, the summit will be seeing key regional leaders who will seek to navigate a solution outside the formal structures of the European Union. It will basically include Germany's Olaf Scholz, Italy's Giorgia Meloni, Poland's Donald Tusk, Denmark's Mette Frederiksen, Spain's Pedro Sanchez, the Netherlands' Wopke Hoekstra, along with the EU President Ursula von der Leyen and the Council President Antonio Costa. And the meeting will basically address what defense capabilities Europe could provide to ensure that Ukraine has credible security guarantees, including a proposal for Ukraine to receive automatic NATO membership in the event of a clear ceasefire breach by Russia. But the signs of rift were clear last week itself. From comments in Europe by several US officials, comments from the Secretary of Defense in Brussels, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Special Russia-Ukraine Envoy General Keith Kellogg in Munich, and then by Donald Trump himself after his hour-and-a-half phone call with Vladimir Putin. And these developments have in a way poured cold water on any hopes of US and Europe working together towards Ukraine's future. Over the past week, European leaders have had a rude awakening in a way regarding the state of the transatlantic alliance. The Finnish president, for that matter, has perhaps best summarized Europe's situation. He quoted a famous phrase from Soviet leader Vladimir Ilyich Lenin saying, "There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen."
This order is easy to disrupt, it's easy to destroy, but it's much harder to rebuild. So let us stick to these values.
Indeed, Europeans now realize they are in many ways on their own. Of course, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Ukraine will not accept any outcomes from discussions in which it was not involved. However, Zelensky has also been sidelined from decisions regarding his own country by Washington, while Europe has not abandoned Ukraine entirely, with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer stating he would consider deploying British troops to Ukraine if a deal to end the war with Russia is reached. Not everyone in Europe shares the same enthusiasm. In fact, it could be said that Europe is a divided house when it comes to Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has said that any discussion of European troops participating in a peacekeeping force in Ukraine is premature. According to Reuters, Scholz also spoke more broadly about European security, saying that supporting Ukraine and its army will be, in his words, a great task for Europe, for the US, and international alliance partners. And he's not wrong, by the way. Europe is already struggling to recruit soldiers for their own national armies. The question is, how will they help Ukraine? The clock is ticking and all eyes are on European leaders. Can Europe re-establish itself in the conversation about Ukraine's future? We will have to wait and watch. Speaking of which, with us on the broadcast this minute is our correspondent Ross Cullen from Paris, France, who's been tracking those developments very closely. Ross, thanks very much for being here. Let me begin by asking you for what the latest is in terms of that meeting. A lot, of course, riding on it. It is a rather important attempt by Europe to regain relevance as far as the conversation on Ukraine is concerned.
Yeah, that's right. That meeting is underway right now at the Élysée Palace here in the centre of the French capital. European leaders spent the weekend scrambling to try to get this organised. The last-minute summit hastily arranged a meeting after the explosive speech by J.D. Vance, the US Vice President at the Munich Security Conference, stunning European leaders. The realisation that the European continent is not going to have that ultimate backstop, the ultimate guarantor of collective security going forward as the United States. They're going to have to take more responsibility themselves, and that responsibility they're going to have to increase it very quickly, increase the size of their national armies, increase the size of their defence budgets, potentially also an agreement at these talks to increase the overall domestic production of arms, artillery and military production here in Europe. The military-industrial complex might have to be completely reshaped as a result of the US administration changing its politics, forcing Europe to also change its overall security policies.
Right. Ross, tell us more about the situation that Europe finds itself in, given the divisions within that continue to come to the forefront.
Well, Europe is continuing to back Ukraine. That is the underlying message from a lot of the leaders here, like the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is in attendance in Paris on Monday for those talks, saying that we will be backing Ukraine and we could even be deploying troops inside Ukraine as peacekeepers if there is a peace agreement signed between Kiev and Moscow. If it's necessary, if Ukraine requires that, then we will be ready to step up to the plate. Even in February last year, President Macron said that we are not taking off the table the idea of Western boots on the ground inside Ukraine. For now, the Spanish Foreign Minister, also attending these talks, says it's too early to talk about troops being sent inside Ukraine because we are still some way off agreeing to a peace settlement between Ukraine and Russia. But that is certainly one of the key topics dominating the conversation about European soldiers eventually, in some capacity, being inside Ukraine.
Right, we're leaving it there for the moment, Ross. Thanks very much for giving us those updates. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And staying on with the United States, the bird flu epidemic has greatly impacted America's poultry industry, forcing the US to reportedly turn to Turkey for egg imports. In fact, according to reports, the US government has signed a preliminary deal to bring in 15,000 tons of eggs by June from Turkey, in an attempt to ease a worsening egg shortage that has left grocery store shelves empty and prices soaring across the US. For over 3 years now, the highly contagious H5N1 virus has ravaged American farms. At least 158 million birds, including chickens, turkeys, hens, have been culled to contain the spread. And according to the US Department of Agriculture, the situation further escalated this winter, with 18 million birds euthanized in December and another 23 million in January. Eggs, once a breakfast staple taken for granted in American households, are reportedly now a scarce commodity. Supermarkets across the country are reportedly rationing purchases, and some major retail chains have imposed stricter measures, capping sales of eggs at 3 cartons per shopper. The impact extends beyond grocery stores, by the way. According to reports, popular breakfast chains in America are struggling to keep up with the rising costs and have introduced surcharges to their menus for eggs. In fact, in just 1 year, egg prices have shot up reportedly nearly 65% across the US. In December, a dozen eggs cost an average of around $4, more than double of what it was in August 2023. And by January, the price had climbed to nearly $5 per dozen eggs, an increase of nearly $1 in just 1 month's time. The surge in egg prices is reportedly driving up overall food costs across the US. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has warned that the worst may be yet to come. Officials predict egg prices could spike another 20% in 2025. Meanwhile, the virus's impact on human health is also raising alarm. Since the start of 2024, 69 human cases have been recorded in America, including the death of a 65-year-old Louisiana man who contracted the virus after exposure to infected animals. In Nevada, dairy cows have tested positive for a strain of avian flu that has caused severe illness in human beings. And even domesticated cats have tested positive. The discoveries reportedly sparked fears that the virus could mutate further, increasing the risk of a broader pandemic and making it even more dangerous for human beings. With no immediate solution in sight, the U.S. faces a dual crisis: soaring food prices and an unpredictable public health threat. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Cyber attacks in India are rising fast, far above the global average. The dark web is fueling this surge. And as threats grow, the question is India prepared to fight back? Let's take a closer look in this report.
India is facing an unprecedented surge in cyber attacks, surpassing the global average. Critical sectors, businesses and individuals remain at high risk, with cyber criminals exploiting vulnerabilities to steal data and launch ransomware attacks. A key driver behind the rise is the dark web, an anonymous online marketplace for illegal transactions. Reports indicate that the dark web accounts for 5% of the entire internet, with around 2.5 million daily visitors in 2023. Nearly 56.8% of its content is linked to illegal activities, including financial fraud and cybercrime. This growing underground economy is fueling data breaches, identity theft, and the sale of stolen digital assets. The dark web plays a crucial role in modern cybercrime, with businesses being prime targets. Reports show that approximately 543 million digital assets linked to Fortune 1000 employees are available for sale. Ransomware-related breaches have doubled each year over the past 2 years, significantly impacting financial stability and corporate reputation. Cyber criminals operate through highly structured online marketplaces, offering stolen credentials, fake identities, and hacking tools. Prices are alarming. A package of 1,000 malware attacks costs $5,000. Cloned credit cards with pins are available for $25, and stolen PayPal accounts with a $100 balance sell for just $30. In India, 20% of cyber crimes involve dark web transactions, with telecom data from 750 million users recently leaked online. Despite India contributing 26% of the dark web's user base, awareness remains low. Within BRICS nations, only 28% of people are familiar with how the dark web operates. Hacktivist activities are also on the rise, with attackers leaking sensitive data when ransom demands go unmet. Experts warn that weak cybersecurity measures and rapid digitalization make Indian businesses an easy target. Cryptocurrencies remain central to cybercrime, facilitating anonymous transactions on the dark web. Bitcoin remains the dominant currency, though alternatives like Litecoin and Dash are gaining popularity. Efforts indicate that crypto-enabled financial crime surged 70% year-on-year, with India contributing 6.9% of global cyber attacks. To counter these risks, experts suggest stronger regulations. On the front, India has taken steps to strengthen cybersecurity. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act provides a legal framework for safeguarding personal data and raising awareness. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has emphasized the need for joint efforts by law enforcement agencies to tackle cyber threats linked to the dark web, cryptocurrencies, and online marketplaces. But with artificial intelligence at the helm of business affairs, the response has to be swift and proactive. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Shifting focus for now, artificial intelligence is just about everywhere. There's no escaping it. It's in our smartphones, computers. It's even being used by big corporations, governments, from everyday work life. When writing an email, for example, or doing homework, AI can play a role. And it's also helping in more complex jobs like diagnosing diseases, accelerating drug development. Even in the battlefield, it's helping to identify and destroy enemy targets. Around 300 million people worldwide use AI today. And that number, by the way, is set to soar to 739 million by 2030. Like the advent of machines and computers, AI promised to transform our lives. And how? Making work faster, simpler, more efficient. But at what cost? A new study by Microsoft Research and Carnegie Mellon University warns that AI reliance might be eroding our cognitive abilities. Brain rot, you must have heard that term. It's often linked to endless doom scrolling. But this research suggests basically that overusing AI leads to the worsening of cognitive faculties. AI excels when it comes to automating tasks, yet its very convenience may be making us dumber. Researchers studied 319 knowledge workers to see how AI affects critical thinking, and the results were stark. The more workers relied on AI, the less critical thinking they engaged in. Instead of problem solving, they became mere overseers, checking AI's work rather than actively engaging in complex thinking. The study basically highlights a troubling shift. Jobs are no longer about solving problems, but ensuring AI correctly solves them. And this transition from task execution to task stewardship leaves workers feeling mentally sluggish, even less capable perhaps. And even more concerning, those relying on AI for complex reasoning produced a narrower range of solutions as compared to those thinking independently. What's the conclusion? Automating routine tasks deprives users of the chance to practice judgment and sharpen their cognitive skills. And over time, this leads to weakened mental faculties, making people less prepared for real-world challenges. And AI is a powerful tool, but blind reliance on it may come at a huge cost. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.